This is the story of 8 little-known muscle cars that destroyed bigger names and were almost forgotten because of it. The 1964 Dodge 330 Max Wedge. At a glance, it was plain. No aggressive styling, no attempt at visual drama. Dodge didn't build it to impress anyone on the street. They built it for one purpose: NHRA Superstock competition. The origin was simple. Dodge needed something lighter than its full-size performance cars. So they stripped the 330 down, removing sound deadening, minimizing interior features, and focusing entirely on weight reduction. What remained was one of the most brutally effective drag platforms of its time. Under the hood sat the 426 cubic inch Max Wedge V8, officially rated at 425 horsepower. In reality, the figure was widely believed to be higher, though Chrysler never published an exact number beyond its conservative rating. Paired with either a heavy-duty 4-speed manual or the rugged TorqueFlite automatic, the 330 Max Wedge was engineered to launch hard and run fast in a straight line. In NHRA Superstock racing, these cars consistently challenged and often defeated more recognizable performance machines, including early big block Chevrolets and Ford's high-performance Galaxies. But its turning point came quickly. By 1965, Chrysler shifted focus toward the 426 Hemi, a more advanced engine that would dominate in both NASCAR and drag racing. The Max Wedge era faded almost overnight. Today, the 330 Max Wedge represents something rare in muscle car history, a purpose-built machine that sacrificed identity for performance and won. Then there was the 1969 Mercury Cougar Eliminator. Unlike its more famous sibling, the Ford Mustang, the Cougar was originally positioned as a more refined, upscale alternative. But by the late 1960s, Mercury wanted something sharper, something that could compete directly with the growing wave of high-performance pony cars. The Eliminator package was the answer. Bright colors, bold graphics, a blackout grille. It looked the part, but more importantly, it carried real performance credentials. Engine options ranged from the 351 Windsor and Cleveland V8s to the 390 Big Block, and eventually the 428 Cobra Jet, an engine that Ford officially rated at 335 horsepower, though its true output was widely accepted to be higher. With the Cobra Jet under the hood, the Cougar Eliminator delivered quarter-mile performance that placed it firmly in competition with and often ahead of Mustangs equipped with similar power. But it never achieved the same recognition. Part of the reason was internal competition. Mercury and Ford were selling variations of the same performance formula, but the Mustang had already secured its cultural identity. The Cougar, despite its capabilities, remained in its shadow. By the early 1970s, tightening emissions regulations and shifting market demands began to reshape the entire muscle car segment. High-compression engines disappeared, insurance costs rose. Performance was no longer the primary selling point. The Eliminator nameplate was discontinued after the 1970 model year. What remains is a car that proved refinement and aggression could coexist, even if history chose to remember only one side of that equation. The 1970 Buick GSX tells a different story. Because this wasn't a car that hid its power, it announced it loudly. Buick, traditionally known for comfort and luxury, made a deliberate decision to enter the high-performance arena. But instead of chasing high-revving horsepower numbers, they focused on something else entirely: torque. The GSX was built on the Grand Sport platform, but its defining feature was the 455 cubic inch V8. In its Stage 1 configuration, it was officially rated at 360 horsepower and an astonishing 510 pounds-feet of torque, one of the highest torque figures ever offered in an American production car. Contemporary road tests recorded quarter-mile times in the low 13-second range, placing the GSX ahead of many better-known competitors, including certain versions of the Chevelle SS and Pontiac GTO. But Buick's image worked against it. Buyers didn't associate the brand with aggressive performance, and production numbers reflected that. Only a limited number of GSX models were produced in 1970, making it one of the rarer muscle cars of its time.
Job done.
The 1968 AMC AMX was even more unconventional. American Motors Corporation didn't have the resources of the Big Three. It couldn't compete on volume, so instead, it chose to compete on focus. The AMX was a two-seat muscle car, something almost unheard of in the segment. Short wheelbase, compact dimensions, built for performance, not practicality. Its most powerful engine option was the 390 cubic inch V8, officially rated at 315 horsepower. Combined with its lighter weight, the AMX delivered strong acceleration and agile handling compared to larger competitors. In sanctioned drag racing, AMC even introduced the Superstock AMX, a purpose-built version designed specifically for NHRA competition. But the market didn't fully embrace the concept. Two-seat muscle cars limited practicality, and sales remained modest. By 1971, the AMX transitioned from a standalone model into a performance package for the Javelin. The original vision compact, focused, unapologetically different, was gone. Still, the AMX proved something important. That performance didn't require size, just intent. The 1969 Dodge Dart GTS 440 pushed that idea even further. Because this car wasn't just fast, it was almost too much for its own platform. Dodge took the mid-size Dart, a relatively lightweight car, and installed the 440 cubic inch V8, officially rated at 375 horsepower. The result was immediate and undeniable. Straight-line acceleration was brutal. The power-to-weight ratio gave it an edge over heavier muscle cars, including some Chargers and Roadrunners equipped with similar engines. But there was a problem. The Dart's chassis wasn't fully designed for that level of torque. Traction was difficult. Handling was unpredictable under hard acceleration. And power steering and power brakes were not always included depending on configuration. It was a car that demanded respect. Then came the 1971 Plymouth Duster 340. At a time when muscle cars were getting heavier and more expensive, Plymouth took a different approach. Keep it simple, keep it light. The Duster was based on the compact Valiant platform, but the 340 variant transformed it into a legitimate performance car. Its 340 cubic inch small block V8 was officially rated at 275 horsepower, though, like many engines of the era, actual output was likely higher. What made the Duster effective wasn't just power, it was balance. Lower weight, strong engine, affordable price. In real-world performance, it could keep pace with, and sometimes outperform larger, more expensive muscle cars. But timing worked against it. By 1971, emissions regulations were already tightening, compression ratios were reduced across the industry, performance numbers began to decline. The Duster 340 lasted only a few years before being replaced by lower compression variants. Its window was brief, but during that time, it delivered something rare, accessible performance that didn't rely on excess. The 1965 Pontiac 2+2 approached performance from another angle entirely. Full size, spacious, unexpectedly fast. Pontiac built the 2+2 as a high-performance version of its Catalina platform, combining large dimensions with serious power. Engine options included the 421 cubic inch V8, with outputs reaching up to 376 horsepower depending on configuration. Despite its size, the 2+2 delivered strong, straight-line performance, benefiting from Pontiac's focus on powertrain engineering during the mid-1960s. It wasn't built for tight corners. It wasn't designed to compete with smaller muscle cars in agility. But in a straight line, it could hold its own, and sometimes more. The challenge was perception. Full-size cars weren't seen as true muscle machines by many enthusiasts, and as the market shifted toward mid-size platforms like the GTO and Chevelle, the 2+2 gradually faded from attention. By the end of the decade, its role had diminished. Yet it remains a reminder that muscle car performance wasn't always tied to size or expectations. And finally, the 1970 Oldsmobile Rally 350, a car shaped as much by insurance companies as by engineers. By 1970, insurance premiums for high-performance big-block cars had risen sharply. Younger buyers, the core muscle car audience, were being priced out of the market. Oldsmobile responded with a different strategy. Instead of offering another big-block powerhouse, they created a car that looked aggressive but used a smaller engine to keep insurance costs lower. The Rally 350 was powered by a 350 cubic inch V8, producing 310 horsepower. It wasn't the most powerful car of its time, but it was quick enough, and more importantly, it was accessible. Its bright Sebring yellow paint, body-colored bumpers, and bold styling made it stand out immediately. But buyers didn't fully understand it. Some expected big block performance, others were put off by its unconventional appearance. Sales were limited, and by 1971, as emissions regulations tightened further, the muscle car era itself began to decline. The Rally 350 disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. Today, it represents a moment when the industry tried to adapt and wasn't quite ready for what came next.